interested in that particular subject matter of public finance management. So we try to engage government to ensure that our money is collected fairly and also spent correctly.
Okay. All right, then we'll move to the next lady, or to the lady on your right. Penina, would you kindly introduce yourself, who you are and what you do?
Thank you very much, Mark. My name is Naga Penina. I'm a research associate at Uganda Date Network. Being the only female on the panel, I think our women should come on and should engage more in this space. It's not only men that should fight for the nation, it's our nation. That's why they call any country her. It's, because it's our women-led, it's our woman. It's a nation that's full of women, and the majority of the population are women. So I will encourage much more women to come on into this space, to fight for the nation and to see it thrilling. Yes.
Okay. Please go on.
Yeah, we are getting back on track. Uganda Date Network, we do analysis on the budget, debt, to see that the government is more transparent in its allocation and ensure that there is efficient allocation of resources and they are prudently managed, and to ensure that the economy is thriving very well, to say that the economy is growing, so that we don't have to go elsewhere to receive the basic services. We can find them here. Okay. Yes.
All right, and when you say that the women are majority, I really want you to decide, by what percentage are women more than men for you to justify such a statement?
60% of our population is women.
Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we are having very relevant people in this studio today to discuss pertinent issues concerning the national budget, and being that these are issues that most of you are affected by, I think it's important that you pay an ear to what we're going to be discussing, because some within here are economic opportunities, within here are advocacy lines or angles, within here are going to be numerous aspects that you can pick a leaf from and take home with you for your specific field of operation. So, being that he is a little more, the most experienced in the house today, I'll start with Julius Mukunda. First and foremost, we are looking at a national budget that didn't go so far away from the previous budget, 2024-2025. We're now looking at 2025-2026. However, we are looking at a new angle, or a unique point of view, in that we are starting a new development plan. And this is the fourth, okay? But being that assessments from the previous national development plans have ranked or have assessed that we haven't met 100% of the targets that each of those development plans started. So one would ask then, why are we setting ourselves up to fail? Why don't we then, set the targets more easier and then implement on a success rate as opposed to a failure rate?
I think every country must be ambitious. If you really are not ambitious, then probably you are likely to end up doing the same things every day and you cannot develop. Let's be very ambitious. And I think when I hear of 50 billion economy to 500 billion economy, I'm like, wow, let's get to it. Because being ambitious makes you think differently, try to do things differently, because it means that if you really want, if somebody wants to run a 100-kilometer journey, and another one is going to run, 1 kilometer, the preparation is different. So we need that kind of vigor, that kind of incentive that we can really run 100 kilometers, and we can do that. That's the bitter part of it, because we have everything that it takes. Yes, the last NDP we didn't do well. We haven't finished actually the final review, but the midterm review put at 17%, which is very embarrassing. If you're in a classroom and you get 17% and you take the report to your dad, for those of us, I mean, really it would be very, very difficult to enter his house with that kind of report. So we need therefore to document our failures and learn from them on how we can actually do better. First and foremost is that I have seen that the new development plan, they have reduced the programs from 20 to 18. which I think that's another one, because that's a learning that you can't do so many things at the same time. Just do as little as you can, step by step, and then you can be able to move ahead. Second, as you rightly said from the beginning, this shifting of budget from 40 trillion to 70 trillion a bit, I mean, where are you going to get that money from? So again, I think is government has tried to say, okay, from 72.1 to 72.3, let us only do that. I think that's one of saying, let us not stretch ourselves so much. We are likely to have a failure. And as such, I think we are now seeing not new programs, especially like my friends from taxation. You can really see that government has not brought new taxes except for this bad one on the border. I wonder why really they had to spoil everything. Okay. Because most of the things they are trying to broaden. They are trying to broaden the taxation, and that is something we have been advocating for. Very few people are paying. Yeah. And yet there are those who can afford to pay, but they are not in taxation bracket. So really, for government, I would say let us work out means. I think the person who thought about that was very brilliant. Yeah. How should we reduce informality, bring everybody on board? The example I could give is that a saloon owner, a garage owner, these garages in one day, some pay direct. A number of them pay direct. But you produce 500 liters of milk. There is no direct tax that you are paying at
okay. I
mean, really tell me that some people are going to get into the bracket. Okay. So I think these are the learnings we are getting. Yeah. It's very important. And I'm hoping that we can really try to see how we can transform our country and our economy.
Nin and Tin, I'll take you on that one a little later because that's a very interesting
for him. He knows
aspect to bring it up. But perhaps let me actually start it from there. Mr. Okwera, from the tax scope, from the tax point of view, how effective would it be to combine a NIN and a TIN? For you viewing us that might not know, TIN is a tax identification number, and then NIN is a national identification number. And I'm guessing that the rationale is to ensure that everybody that is eligible of having a national identification number should be eligible to have a tax identification number. And government has been struggling to widen the tax base. Very many complaints have come, especially from private sector, that the taxable population is quite small. I would want you to start off from there. What do you think are the gaps or the places that government has not been looking in trying to widen the tax base to the potential that it can serve our needs as they should without or minimizing the level at which we borrow?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark. That's a very interesting trail of questions. And before I get to that, just allow me to supplement on what my colleague Julius has just mentioned. He says something that is very important for us to observe as we analyze what's happening in this year's budget. Yeah. So we are in the middle of the half-year mark. The first three NDPs are done. Government has evaluated. It has learned from the mistakes that have been made and has projected a different approach going forward. Of course, you have to maintain that the NDPs are hinged on the 2040 vision, which is to push us to upper middle income status. Yeah. Now, there's a very strong saying in the tax world that if you want to punish a middle income man, put him between tax and inflation. Now, government is cognizant of some of these things. So this year's tax is moving away from squeezing the middle income person and focusing more on how to emphasize administration of tax, collection, and closing some of those administrative deficiencies. So key on the budget papers and the NDP 4 is to find a way of emphasizing tax administration. Yeah. Now we are seeing these very same sentiments expressed in the tax amendments. One of them, as Julius had mentioned, very key, is the introduction of a seamless transition of individuals to the tax register. Right now, the tax register has about 4.5 million taxpayers, and that's a very big contradiction from the 45 million Ugandans who are there. So before we even start talking about we are collecting little, we have very little people on the list.
Yeah, but of course that assumption wouldn't count if if you notice that over 70% of our population is under the age of 15, so those are not barely taxpayers. But yeah,
yes,
please.
The 30% of it would still not be less than 4.5. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, but
So,
I mean, the range is not as big as if someone benchmarked on 45 million. But please.
That is fine. Even if you pick out the 10 million, we're less than half of that amount of reasonable taxpayers who should come into the bracket. Meaning most of the cash that should actually be taxed is out of the net, and people have been under the radar. Because of the bureaucracy on tax registration, you need to get a TIN before you can be noticed. Now, the introduction of a NIN comes with its own complications. In my opinion, I think there has to be a lot of emphasis on how they're going to protect personal information, because the national ID card takes you straight to the village. It takes you straight to your village. It talks about your parish, what's going down to the village. So that information is quite sensitive and may lead to a new era of identity fraud.
Yeah, but
so
we have a data protection law.
We have a data protection law, but we have so many laws in this country with zero enforcement. So the issue is, the introduction of this administrative aid is welcome.
Yeah.
But there's a need for the spillover of the negative also to be taken care of. URA should come out to assure that the data is going to be safe, to ensure to tell the taxpayers that if you give me this information, it will not be hacked, it will not be engaged by any other person. And that falls into the statement by the Commissioner General when he appeared before the Parliament in January, confirming that they are focusing more on digitization. So they're aligning the protection as well. So the tax introduction, the tax provisions in this year's budget are tuned towards more emphasis on tax administration. So how can it make it easier for URA to collect more tax? I mean, they have reduced the penalty on IFRIS.
Yeah.
So let's have less crying, because before it was barbaric. 8 million, 6 million for one transaction. So now if you sell a bottle of soda at 1K and the tax is 180, the penalty would be 360, so 2 times the tax payable. You see it everywhere across the board. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the tax provisions have been designed to focus more on how do we make URA's life easier in collecting taxes, and there has been very limited, or if no introduction of any new tax. Yeah. Now, for the next 10 years going forward, and what the NDP is going to cover for the next 5 years, the focus is, let's not squeeze the taxpayer, let's focus on administration, let people have some flexibility to earn money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think you raised very insightful points there. I like the fact that you also catered to the other side of rolling out the NIN with the TIN, and I think that's something that the URA or anybody in the office, the Commissioner General, should be taking a note of. So let me move now to my colleague on my immediate left, Ms. Penina. When it comes to allocation of the national budget, we're looking at boosting household incomes as one of the priorities, industrialization, private sector development, and we're looking at transport infrastructure and human capital development. It's of course important to note that some of these priorities have come, of course, from the previous national budget. And the ATMs were some of those things that we were using to see that we achieve upper middle income status by Vision 2040. I want you to analyze for me the priorities on their relevance and whether or not we left out some priorities that we could have handled.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark.
But I would ask you to be a little more louder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mark. Yes, we see the way the coming financial year's budget, the way the priorities are being aligned, I feel they are good. Yeah. I feel they are aligned with our competitive advantage as a country when it comes more to agriculture. But I feel that when it comes to the allocations, yes, they are emphasizing the ATMs, but how much are they allocating to those programs? We see that there is a deficit when it comes to the allocation. When it comes even to the development plan, the way it is guiding our government, how it's allocating. to those programs, because we see that tourism and agriculture, we have a very good competitive advantage. We have, if we're told tourism is really given an emphasis, is really given forefront, we see it has a potential of increasing our foreign reserves, and it has a, if I told our foreign reserves are increasing, also the foreign exchange, when it comes to our currency, we see that it has a potential of not depreciating, and also has a great impact of improving our debt. When it comes to the servicing, we won't be able to face a huge burden when it comes to repayment part. Yes, I feel when it comes to education, it is a bit lacking. Yes, most times the PSSD says when it comes to we can find like when it comes to industrialization, the infrastructure, you can find that it is in the infrastructure development program, but you want to see that in the agro-industrialization program, it's feeling the pinch of what is being allocated to the manufacturing sector. It is feeling the pinch of what's being allocated, so that we see that these sectors are really thrilling, because most of the time we see that you're exporting. We have a trade deficit. You're exporting because we are exporting less, because we have less of the value-added goods, and we are importing those goods that are a bit expensive. And what does that mean to our country? It's really, I feel it's an injustice to our nation that if at all we are rich when it comes to agricultural products, what if we add value to them? I see we can do much more better, and all the challenges that the country and the nation are facing at the moment, they can easily be addressed.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'm also seeing some points here that we can maybe also discuss further with Mr. Julius. I see that agriculture, like you had earlier mentioned, that agriculture is not taxed, okay? And Uganda is primarily an agrarian economy, yeah? But we are trying to shift away from necessarily being an agricultural-led economy to an export-led economy. And agriculture within there is among those priority sectors that we are trying to see that we can export. Recently, we exported our first batch of coffee, value-added coffee to Serbia, and we marked a very significant success in that realm. So I can see that already we have the ideas that exporting is going to do better for economy than importing, but also exporting finished products. Yes. Besides just exporting coffee in its raw product, in its raw form and the likes. But before I also ask the question, I would just also like to hint to our audience. I want you to understand that government is prioritizing boosting household incomes and micro enterprises. And of course, these are through these programs, the Parish Development Model, Emyoga, and the other programs, the Microfinance Support Center, which is actually running those programs. And then in industrialization and private sector development, I can see that they've given 275.9 billion shillings to that. And then transport infrastructure development, which is a very key economic enabler. We're seeing 2.17 trillion actually going for the standard gauge railway, and 2.2 trillion going for national roads and bridges. I want to speak on infrastructure as an economic enabler. Okay. We are seeing that the last financial year, infrastructure was still a priority. And we also see some of the aspects. Of course, we see that roads were commissioned, some roads were commissioned, but some are still lagging, and they are going to enter into the next financial year. What cost does it cost when infrastructure projects delay?
Okay, so two things, one on export and agriculture and the infrastructure.
Yes,
I think on exports, what can government Uganda export? I mean, really, the only thing we have is agriculture. Forget about gold. We know it is an outlier.
I don't think we only have
but I mean, the biggest, one of the things you can really export very well is agriculture, agricultural products.
Yeah.
And you have mentioned something I had not read about, the coffee added product, because I thought I was going to give you a new one. Recently, we've just exported 500 metric tons of powdered milk to Algeria. Now, That's going to be a game changer in the dairy industry. We are not going to start suffering with Kenya, please buy our milk. No, we are going to tell them, by the way, we don't have milk to give you.
But also Algeria alone is not a market enough for us to boast.
No, wait. And in the case, just imagine 500 metric tons. How many liters turn into that? How many cows will produce those kind of liters? And who is going to produce that milk? It is that individual farmer in Chiruhura, in Isinjiro, those people with cows that are producing milk. And as such, the days of having your liter being sold at 500 shillings are going to be over, because now, apart from Algeria, government has now realized the importance of commercial diplomacy to look for markets. So all those Arab countries, all these desert countries that don't have milk, that is our target. So if we shift from 500 metric tons to 5,000 metric tons, that is a game changer. That's the kind of value addition export you look out for in the dairy sector.
I also want to ask, the powdered milk in its value-added form is now paying tax.
Now, that's when I'm coming in. Now I'm coming in with him. Now,
Right, yeah.
these people now who are in the dairy industry now are getting into the taxation bracket.
Okay.
Because now they are producing for export. They are earning some money. Previously, they couldn't get into the taxation bracket because milk is being bought at home. At times they even pour it because they have nowhere to sell it. But now there is a market that is organized. Because you're not going to sell to Algeria your milk which is not being properly harvested from cows. You must make sure that there are standards that are going to be followed. To do that, probably you need to be in a cooperative. And the cooperative will make sure that standards are set for you to sell the right quality of milk. And once we start organizing ourselves, then we are reducing the informality, and which is killing this economy in this country. So that is agriculture. We shall go to education. We shall go to tourism. Now, once we do that, let me tell you, then and now, government will have enough money. We stop borrowing from Stanbic Bank across the street. And once that is done, then we know that at least interest rates go down, private sector can start growing. Now our farmers will start using high-tech in the dairy industry and other areas. So,
because to produce that amount of milk, you really need to mechanize.
And actually, I'm very afraid that if we get more markets, we might not actually fulfill this market. That's the challenge I'm just thinking, because we really need to start to invest in the production of this particular market. And if PDM is also going to succeed, similar things must happen. We must have guaranteed market for our maize, guaranteed markets for our beans, guaranteed markets for our soybean and whatever we are doing. It's really sad that you find a company that comes to Uganda, wants to establish an oil industry, and the first thing they do is to first go and farm. And then you ask yourself, surely if government was serious, it would have been able to produce enough for this person, instead of investing money to start farming, to invest the money in having a very high capacity machine that can produce more oil for this country. So I think that's where the link, my missing link in agriculture is investing to produce for the manufacturers so that we can export. The issue of infrastructure is our infrastructure gap is real. Yes, we've borrowed the money to build some roads. We have the express highway until they brought the express fines.
But first, help me decipher. Is the express highway the most expensive road in Uganda? Because is it the most expensive road?
I think it is the most, it's the
in
best.
the world.
No,
actually, in the world, not even.
The best looking.
But is it the most? Because someone's, anyway, please.
No.
It's
probably not. But I think for me is that it is very crucial that we have a better infrastructure, because infrastructure helps us to move goods and services. It reduces the cost of doing business. Just imagine how long it takes from Maraba to Kampala. If you had a standard